The bridge of the unbroken crown smelled like burnt copper and melted wire. Fleet Admiral Drex Morvan stood by his ruined command chair. He looked through the cracked viewport. 1,200 warships had entered the Kalos system. Now, only scattered debris and burning metal remained. One ghost ship had done this. It took exactly 23 minutes to learn what 4 centuries of silence buys. The ghost ship drifted past the wreckage. It measured 2,400 meters of dead black hull. It had no running lights. It left no exhaust trail. It moved at 1/3 light speed without making a single sound. It did not slow, it did not turn, it did not care. On Morvan's main screen, a human voice looped on an open channel. It repeated the same 9 words. The dead do not forget, they only prepare. Morvan reached for his command console. His hand shook. He transmitted a full fleet surrender. The black ship ignored the signal. It passed his crippled flagship and kept going deep into the dark. I'll be honest. If the story ended there, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But Earth hadn't even started fighting yet. 3 days earlier, the vote at the Oran Spire took 10 minutes. The Galactic Concord sat in the massive stone chamber. They voted 412 to 7. The Zethrani were granted permission to take Earth's outer systems. Morvan stood at the podium and demanded humanity surrender their only capital ship as tribute. Ambassador Vela Asen stood from her seat. Her bioluminescent skin pulsed with warning. She told the council they were making a mistake. She told them humanity was too quiet. Morvan laughed. He told her human silence was just fear. The council approved the invasion force and moved to the next agenda item. Admiral Soren Vane read the vote transcript in his office at Titan Command. He did not yell. He did not call the politicians to beg for a delay. He set his father's scorched metal flask on his desk. The old railgun dent caught the harsh room light. He pressed his missing fingers against the cold steel. He had carried the flask for 34 years. Vane tapped his comms panel. "Get me Captain Talon." Earth had only one capital ship. The Pax Terra sat in orbit around the 4th planet of the Kalos system. The Zethrani fleet was 72 hours away. They carried 300,000 ground troops. The conquered expected humanity to fold. Vane gave his orders. He told Talon the flagship would fight alone. He told her it was a sacrifice play. Earth needed the massive enemy fleet to commit to a hard attack path so they could track the vector. Talon accepted the order without a single pause. She locked her ship down for combat. Captain Jira Talon stood on the bridge of the Pax Terra. She wore her mother's dog tags around her neck. The Zethrani Vanguard dropped out of light speed right on top of her position. They launched a massive wave of heavy fighter craft. Talon ordered her small screening force to engage. 23 light human ships flew straight into the massive enemy formation. They fired everything they had. They dumped raw mining charges out of their airlocks. They rammed Zethrani cruisers when their cannons ran dry. They bought Talon exactly 14 minutes of clear air. The Zethrani flagship moved forward. It fired a heavy plasma barrage. Talon's forward shields failed. Her hull breached in 4 places. Fires broke out on the lower decks. She opened a widebend channel to the alien fleet. She spoke her final line. "The dead do not forget, they only prepare." The Pax Terra exploded. The ship turned into a cloud of bright orange dust against the black void. On Rhea Station, Lieutenant Pax Oren watched the sensor data roll across his screen. The Zethrani began jamming all frequencies. Oren did not panic. He rerouted station power through the life support grid to boost his sensors. He wiped a coffee stain off his monitor and kept working. The Pax Terra had died exactly where Vane planned. Oren traced the path of the enemy weapons. He tracked the massive energy wake of the heavy Zethrani drives. He locked their speed and their exact heading. "Admiral," Oren said over the secure line, "I have their course. They took the bait. They are coming straight up the middle." Vane sent the exact coordinates to Relay Station 9 Gamma. Sergeant Nico Tar and 47 soldiers waited there in the dark. They were the next piece of the trap. They needed to hold the station for 71 minutes. They needed to fire a tight beam signal burst when the Zthrani fleet crossed a specific line in space. Zthrani dropships slammed into the station's outer hull. Heavy alien troops breached the main airlock. Tar ordered his men to vent the atmosphere in Sector 4. The sudden vacuum pulled the first wave of invaders out into space. Tar fired his rifle until the barrel smoked. His men fought in zero gravity for 10 minutes. They died holding the narrow access corridors. The metal floor shook under heavy alien boots. The invaders brought plasma torches. They cut through the blast doors. Tar's squad fell back to the main control room. They used mining lasers and pure stubbornness to block the final door. The air turned thick with smoke. They held the line. At the 71st minute, only 12 human soldiers were left standing. The final door buckled. Alien troops poured into the room. Tar slammed his bloody hand onto the main console. He fired a 3-second burst transmission deep into the dark space behind Saturn. The signal hit the Kuiper Forge. The massive hidden shipyard sat perfectly hidden behind the gas giant's mass shadow. The Remembrance received the code. The ship woke up. The onboard AI cycled main power. It tested the weapon's grid in a fraction of a second. It engaged the negative energy drive. The massive docking clamps released. Earth had laid the keel 400 years ago. They built the ship in complete silence. They upgraded the heavy armor every 12 years while the conquered looked the other way. The AI had run hundreds of thousands of combat simulations against Zthrani doctrine. It ran on kinetic lance technology the aliens thought was a dead myth. The massive engines lit up. The ship left the solar system. The Remembrance slammed into the Zthrani fleet at the edge of the Kalos system. It did not broadcast a challenge. It just started killing. It fired solid tungsten rods moving near light speed. The rods carried no explosive charge. They relied purely on mass and speed. At minute 8, the heavy rods punched straight through the Zthrani flagship's thick energy shields. The alien ship lost all propulsion instantly. At minute 14, the Remembrance targeted the support vessels. It shattered 20 cruisers in a single heavy pass. The alien command network collapsed entirely. Ships crashed into each other trying to run. At minute 19, 3 Zthrani dreadnoughts tried a desperate ramming maneuver. The Remembrance fired 3 times. It cut the massive ships in half before they got close. The black human hull absorbed all incoming fire. It took hits that would melt a small moon and kept flying. It did not flinch. No warnings, no demands, no mercy. Morven stood on his dead bridge. Smoke filled the air. Warning alarms screamed in the background. He touched his ceremonial war axe. The blood on the blade was 43 years dry. He had taken 12 worlds in his career. He would never take another. The human phrase looped on his main screen. Morven looked at the sheer ruin of his massive fleet. He pressed the broadcast button. He transmitted his absolute surrender. The Remembrance did not stop its engines. It did not open a channel to accept his terms. It simply altered course and vanished into the deep void. It had made its point. Morven was left alive to tell the conquered exactly what he saw. 5 days later, the Oran Spire was completely silent. Ambassador Asen stood in the center of the massive chamber. She played the raw combat data for the Central Council. They watched the black ship tear the Zthrani fleet apart. Nobody spoke a single word. The conquered immediately reclassified humanity. They were not a low-priority target anymore. They were a force the galaxy did not understand. At Titan Command, there was no celebration. Vane sat at his desk. The tea in his flask was completely cold. He looked at the final casualty reports. He read Jira Talon's name. Sergeant Tar walked into the office. His uniform was torn and stained with dried blood. He did not salute. He walked straight to the desk. He set the scorched metal flask on the table between them. The railgun dent had not changed, but the species that carried it had.